Hey everyone, this is Rachel. Thanks for clicking on my video today, and I hope you're having a wonderful morning. Now, I came in today to talk about Michelle Obama's DNC speech. I want to say right off that Michelle Obama, whenever I get a chance to watch her, she is a very, very good speaker. And her speech at the DNC was very moving. I'm not going to try to repeat any of the lines. There's just one that I wanted to talk about, and you guys know which one it is. It's the part where she said that she wakes up every day in a house that slaves built. And she talked about how, it amazes her to watch her children playing on the White House lawn. Two little black girls out there playing with their dog. You know, Michelle Obama is a descendant of slaves. So for her, it does have a very deep meaning to have spent the last 8 years in that house. To think that her ancestors came here in bondage and now her husband is the president of the United States. And he has served with dignity and as much class as he could possibly do in the face of everything that was thrown at him. Whether you like his policies or you like him at all, let's face it, he did the best job that he knew how to do. Now, Michelle Obama's speech sparked a firestorm on Twitter and throughout the right-wing media. A lot of people were a little irritated that she said that line about living in a house that slaves built. And they were, in disbelief. They don't want to even go there about the fact, and it is a fact, that slaves built the White House. And when you think about how they want to whitewash America's history, write us out of it, it never ceases to amaze me. Even on Twitter, there were things being said back and forth, and Kelly Clarkson had this little great comeback that I particularly liked. Now, here's this little white singer, and one of her, I guess, supporters or fans said they weren't sure they liked the part where she said the White House was built by slaves. And Kelly Clarkson responded she was pretty certain the slaves that built it didn't like it either. Now, I like that. It shows that, she was watching that speech that Michelle Obama was giving, and she was also moved by it. Now that brings me to why I'm doing this video today. Bill O'Reilly, after watching Michelle Obama's speech and taking probably offense to that line that she gave about living in a house that slaves built, this asshole, because I cannot stand this man, I really do not like his arrogant ass. His dumb ass is going to come back and say that the slaves that built the White House, he did, state the fact that yes, slaves built it, but he said that they were well fed, paid, and housed. See, this is the dumb ass comments that just kind of piss me off, because let's face the facts. Those slaves that were there building on the White House, they said that there were over 400 of them, and they made up the bulk of the people who actually built the White House. They had no choice on whether they were there. A lot of those slaves, they were the slaves of white men who were there, to assist in building the White House. They brought their slaves along with them, and the slaves were forced to work on it. They didn't have a choice. And this thing about them being well fed, I believe they were half fed. And then they talk about, or Bill O'Reilly talks about them being paid. There were free black people that worked on the White House as well. Do you think they were paid a good wage? And then this thing about them being housed. From what I remember, my college kicks in here, my days at college. From what I'm understanding is there were like pens that the slaves were kept in. You know how you go on a trip and you're staying at a hotel and you may have brought your dog with you. And the dog is not allowed to stay at the hotel, for health reasons. And you find a local pen to put your dog up in. Basically, that's what happened with the slaves. They could not stay where their masters stayed because, they were dirty slaves. So there were these pens, kind of like jails, that the slaves were kept in, I guess, during the night when there was no building done. They didn't have personal homes that they could go to after a hard day's work. They were kept in like little pens, like animals. This is the whitewashing that America likes to do. They want to write us out of any history that had to do with the building of America. Do you know that slaves also helped build the railroads across this country? Do you think they were well fed and treated fairly and, all just everything about them was done in such a good way? Or do you think that those slaves were forced to work on those railroads, probably beaten and starved half to death and, out in the elements because they didn't have homes to go to that were comfortable and where they could rest up after a hard day's work? This Bill O'Reilly, he fancies himself a historian. Now, what I say to him is he needs to check his facts because the shit that he spewed on his show is just stupid. And it doesn't even speak to the historical records that have been kept proving that the slaves worked on the White House and some of those buildings in Washington, the Capitol and the Supreme fucking Court. I mean, can you imagine those slaves working on the Supreme Court of the United States? Did they even understand the weight that that building and the people in that building would carry in the history of this country? They had no idea that it would be the ruling court that said all men were created equal. I just tell y'all, like I said, it never ceases to amaze me, the hypocrisy of this country. It never ceases to amaze me. And with that, I just wanted to come in and see if you guys had, were aware of all this backlash that she got for that line, that Michelle Obama got for that line. As a little black girl, I am so proud that I lived to see a black man in the White House and a black woman in the White House with kids that, little black kids, a family that looked like my family. I never dreamed that I would see this day. Never dreamed. So, Michelle Obama, for me, your speech was moving. And I felt you when you talked about, being a little black girl from Chicago and living in the White House, and that what she was saying is, I cannot believe this. Again, my ancestors, speaking as Michelle Obama is what I'm doing. Her ancestors came here in bondage. And she just spent 8 years as the First Lady of the United States of America. Her husband, Barack Hussein Obama, was the most powerful man on earth for 8 years. Deal with it, white America. Deal with it. And with that, thanks for listening to the video, and you guys have a wonderful day.